I had dinner last night with our procurement staff here in town, and I went around the table and I asked them where they went to school, and almost to a man, they said UGA. And it just reminds me what a great school you've got here in Georgia. But there was one guy who was from Auburndale, so you can't rest on your laurels. Anyway, it's a real pleasure to be here with you guys today. I spoke to the GFA, I think it was about 5 years ago at Hilton Head, and 4 years ago I had a chance to speak to the UGA Timberland Conference, I think in Amelia Island. And so it's been a few years since I've been back here. You know, I think I'm a few years older. I'd like to think I'm a few years wiser, probably humbler. But I'm no less excited about the opportunities that we see as a company here in the South and specifically in Georgia. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about where we've come over the last 4 or 5 years. I'm going to talk to you about where we are as a company today. And I'm going to talk to you about where we see ourselves going in the future. And I don't know whether we're going to have a chance for Q&A after Dale, but I'm happy to talk to anybody after the session here today. So let me just tell you about Interfor in the South. Dale mentioned that we're the 4th largest lumber company in North America, actually 4th largest in the world as well. In the US South, we have 1.4 billion feet of capacity across 3 states. And we put that platform together between 2013 and 2015, and we bought 5 companies and 9 mills in a very short period of time. And we currently employ about 1,500 people in the South. And when I was at the UGA conference, I talked about why we were interested in the South. And there was really 2 basic reasons for that. One, what was going on in Canada and in the Pacific Northwest with timber supply issues, the mountain pine beetle in British Columbia and in Alberta, environmental issues in the Pacific Northwest. And as we looked for investment opportunities, it didn't take us long to focus in on the South. We tried for a number of years to find an opportunity that made sense for us down here. And ultimately, in 2013, we were able to acquire initially Rayonier's Wood Products business, and then subsequently 4 other companies after that. And the things that really were attractive to us were favorable timber supply in the midst of the largest end-use market in North America, a significant and viable residuals offtake. And if you think about that, each saw log, about 50% of that will make lumber and 50% of it makes other stuff. And you need a viable offtake market for those byproducts to justify the economics of the business. The infrastructure here is outstanding. The rail systems, the highways, particularly the ports, are absolutely outstanding. And we saw a need to be able to take product out of the South to other markets. And that infrastructure is extremely important aspect of that. And a business-friendly government. We've been very impressed when we first invested. We've been very impressed since then of the relationship that exists between the landowners, the industry, and the state government here in Georgia. I had a chance yesterday to visit with Governor Kemp. First time I'd met him. He gave me another Bulldogs jersey, which I really appreciated. And the relationship is really good. And as we've developed our business, being able to work constructively with the state government is a really important aspect of that. And I'll touch on that as I go forward. But the other thing, probably the most important thing that we saw was the embedded opportunity that existed down here to bring our management, our style, our ability to access capital, to invest in this business, to create a different business, a more profitable business, and attractive returns on the capital that we were going to invest down here. So let me tell you what's happened over the last 4 years since I last talked here. We've taken 5 companies, we've integrated them into 1. That's not as easy as it might sound when you consider they're very different. There was companies that were offshoots of pulp and paper companies, there was independents, there was sawmilling companies, there was chipping companies. We've formed them all into 1. And we've created a regional office in Peachtree City, just south of Atlanta, establishing common standards and operating platforms in the business was harder than I would have thought it would be when we started off. But we've made really great progress in that regard over the last couple of years, and I'm really pleased at the rate of progress we're seeing today in that area. The other thing that's been really important is putting together structured QC systems, both in the woods and in the mills. A number of you who are suppliers to us know about the work that we're doing on log quality. If you're going to produce a quality lumber product, you've got to have a quality log to start with. And once you start with a quality log, you've got to have dedicated, structured, intense systems inside the sawmills to ensure that you're producing a quality product, whether it's size control or what have you. Being able to deliver a quality lumber product to our customer is dependent upon these kinds of systems that we've embedded inside our operations over the last couple of years. The other thing that we've done, and I'm going to touch on this as we go forward, one of the challenges in the South is being able to attract a workforce, a stable workforce with the skill sets that you need to be able to run a lumber-first operation. And the turnover rates here are significantly higher amongst our employees than we're used to experiencing historically back in the Pacific Northwest. And as the economy moves to a reduced level of unemployment, which it is now, it becomes harder and harder to be able to access the kind of folks that are going to be stable, that are going to be able to adapt to the types of programs that we want to put in place in our operations. And so we've established very robust recruiting, onboarding, safety programs, training programs, apprenticeship programs in our operations, and we've raised wages. You know, the days of lots of available labor that you don't have to pay very much, I think are gone in our industry and in others. And so we've been very active, and we're going to continue to be active as we embed these kinds of programs in our system. We've also, since 2015, we've invested $150 million in process control systems, continuous dry kilns, auto graders, and mobile equipment. You know, going back when we first invested here and we talked about the embedded opportunities that existed, what we found was the levels of technology in these facilities wasn't what we were used to or what we were capable of installing. And so we've started that process, and we started it fairly slowly, upgrading these facilities into something that we would be more comfortable with and we thought could be competitive in a global marketplace from a longer term standpoint. And we've also looked to expand the market. There's a really interesting situation here in the Southeast, and I talked about the fact that it's a large market that historically has had to import lumber products to meet its requirements. But the Southeast is the one area of North America where there's an abundant timber supply. And to take advantage of that timber supply, if we're not careful, we'll flood the market with product in this particular region. We need to have the ability to move yellow pine out of the South into other markets of North America and other markets of the world. And if you can see from this chart, last year we actually sold yellow pine MSR product into Canada. You know, and if you think about some of the history between Canada and the US on softwood lumber trade, we took a great deal of pride of being able to move product from here back up to Canada. I also live in California part of the year, and we're moving product from here to California as well. We're moving it to India, we're moving it to China, we're moving it to Japan, we're moving it to the other Asia Pacific markets. And we've got a goal inside our company of moving somewhere between 10 and 15% of our production initially into those offshore markets. The current trade dispute with China isn't helping that in the short term, but I think longer term, the opportunities are there to be able to move product into that market as well. So we've learned a few things. First of all, I think we've learned that the opportunities here are better than we thought for a couple of reasons. One, the timber supply situation in Canada and in the Pacific Northwest is worse than we thought at the time. The log supply situation here in the South is better than what we thought. The way that the logging community has adapted to the programs that we've wanted to bring into place here has been really quite rewarding from our standpoint. We're very pleased to see what's happened there. And as we've assessed the situation, the embedded opportunities that we saw in the South are even, we think, better or larger than we initially had expected. But there are challenges as well, and they're not easily overcome. I thought it rained a lot in Vancouver. Well, it rains an awful lot down here. When it rains really hard, and that impacts our ability to log, and it impacts our facilities as well. The workforce challenges, whether it's turnover rates, opiate issues, just general availability is a challenge, and it's not something that you're going to overcome overnight. We've made progress. We've driven our turnover rates from in the 30% on average down into the mid-20s, but we still have a long way to go to be able to create the stability in our operations that we think is necessary to be successful long term. And there's other constraints that the business faces, whether it's on the trucking side, both log trucks in or lumber trucks out, skilled trades for capital projects and things of that nature. So there are some challenges here, and it's one of the reasons why it's taken longer to make the progress that we'd identified early on as the opportunity here. And it reminds me of the old adage that lots of people have good ideas, only a few can get things done. And I'm really fortunate to be surrounded in my organization with a bunch of really capable people that we've developed over the last couple of years, brought into place down here, and are now taking responsibility for our operations and delivering what I think are really significant gains in the way our business is managed. And it's giving us the confidence to move into the next stage of what things are all about here, which is upgrading the technology in our operations. So let me just tell you a little bit about some things that we've announced over the last probably 16 to 18 months. Is we've moved into a very aggressive capital investment plan across the south, and we're doing it in phases. The first phase was upgrading our facility at Monticello, Arkansas, and upgrading our mill at Meldrum, Georgia. I'm going to tell you a little bit about those projects in a minute, but they're both complete and they're in the ramp-up stage. Total of $70 million worth of investment. The bigger, more exciting piece is what we call phase two, which is Georgetown, South Carolina, Eatonton, and Thomaston, Georgia, where we're going to spend a total of $240 million on major upgrades of 3 facilities. And the third phase, which is only just starting now, is minor upgrades at Perry and Baxley, with more to come. And so a total commitment of $330 million, which we'll spend over the next 2 to 3 years upgrading these facilities. So I just want to give you a sense, of those of you that spend any time in sawmills, I get excited about seeing this stuff, these pictures here. But I'll tell you what those are. On the left-hand side is a optimized log merchandising system, which takes a tree-length log and then scans it with a computer, determines the appropriate bucking lengths, and those saws adjust back and forth, and they buck the log into pieces based on maximum product recovery or value recovery from that individual piece of equipment. The one on the right-hand side, I like to describe it as a big blue and yellow machine, but what that is a canter line. It's a primary breakdown system in a mill which takes a log, scans it, adjusts its positioning relative to the saws, scans it again, readjusts it, holds it in place, and breaks that log down in a way, chipping off the sides and sawing that log in a way that will, again, maximize the value and volume recovery from that facility. And those are the kinds of things that we've got in our operations in the Pacific Northwest and in British Columbia, and that we're bringing to our operations here in the Southeast. This one is at Monticello. It's a $50 million project in its own right, doing that along with some other things that were done inside that mill. And we're currently in the ramp-up stage, which I think is going reasonably well. But I think within a couple of months, this will be operating at our pro forma levels or above, and I think it will generate a really attractive return for us from the standpoint of that investment. The upgrade at Meldrum was somewhat less ambitious. That sawmill actually runs pretty well as it is, but it was constrained by lack of kiln capacity and by an outdated planer system. And so what we've done is we've upgraded the planer. We've installed an auto grader. And what an auto grader is really is you're grading lumber by computer as opposed to having people do it. So there's less people involved in that grading piece, and their accuracy, obviously the accuracy of the computer is significantly higher than the accuracy of through visual grading. What I should have mentioned to you when we looked at the picture of the autograder or the canner line a few minutes ago, one of the big differences in those systems compared to older technologies is the speed at which they run. I think the canner line at Monticello that existed before we rebuilt it ran at around 250 feet per minute and didn't run very well. This one's capable of running 650 to 750 feet per minute, and it'll run continually. And so if you think about a linear system and how fast things are going to be going here, the ability to manage that pace and that volume count and that piece count is a significant difference from what we saw in some of these older facilities, and the net result is significantly better man-day productivity and lower costs in running this, in addition to better recovery of lumber per ton of log. So Meldrum was completed in June as well. It's not as complex a project as Monticello. It's ramping up very quickly, and we're excited about what that project offers for us. The phase 2 projects, just very quickly, probably Georgetown is not as large a project as the other two. We're going to upgrade the sawmill, adjust some of the activities in the planer, and install an autograder. At Eatonton and Thomaston are major upgrades. They're in round numbers, both about $100 million US each, which is a fairly significant number and not for the faint of heart. So we want to make sure that those things are set up and designed and executed as well as we possibly can. But we'll be doing exactly the same thing as the Monticello upgrade or some of the upgrades we've done in the Northwest. It'll be faster, it'll be more accurate, and it'll be a much more competitive facility going forward than those facilities are today. Perry is simply a new kiln and some site infrastructure, and Baxley is a new autograder again and some upgrades to the planer system. This gives you an idea of the timeline on which these projects are done. I mentioned that Monticello and Meldrum had already been completed. Georgetown, they're in the initial phases of that project today. It'll be completed by early 2020. Eatonton, I was there, as I said yesterday, with the governor. That project is going to break ground in October, and it'll be finished in early 2021. And Thomaston will begin the project at Thomaston later on this year, and it'll be completed in late 2021 or early 2022. Perry and Baxley are both 2019-2020 projects. So there's an awful lot of stuff on the go, and one of the challenges that we've got is making sure that we don't take on too much at one time and then fail in our installations. So I'm pushing our operating guys and I'm pushing our capital projects guys really hard on this, and one of the challenges is making sure that we've got the ability to manage these things and manage them effectively, and that the workforce can adapt to it. So we're thinking a little bit about this timeline, but that's a detail. The key piece of it will be over the next 2 or 3 or 3.5 years, we are going to significantly upgrade our platform of assets here in the South. And that in turn has got a whole bunch of really exciting benefits, obviously for us, because we think they're attractive investments and will generate good returns for us. But we're going to boost our lumber production in the South from somewhere around 1.2 billion board feet today to somewhere in the 1.7 to 1.8 billion board feet. Labor productivity is going to improve dramatically. The thing that'll catch your folks' attention, I'm sure, is the increase in log consumption. That's, I think, about a 35 or 40% increase in the total volume of logs that we'll be consuming in our existing platform of assets. Somewhere, if you price it at current levels, somewhere in the range of $75 or $80 million of incremental log supply. Having a better ability to process the profile in each of the areas that we operate in, which I think will be a good thing for our landowners and log suppliers. More byproduct for our customers in those areas, and for us, a significant reduction in our costs of operation, and we believe in our profitability here in the region. A couple of other things. it was mentioned earlier, Dale said he thought we were the largest lumber producer in Georgia. We are the largest lumber producer in Georgia, and we are the largest by a long shot. And we have something like I think it's a 33 or 35% share of the lumber production in Georgia currently. We just produce a little over 1 billion board feet. We consume 4.2 million tons of logs last year, and that's, as I said, starting to ramp up. We employ over 1,200 people. We pay almost $90 million in wages. And I think the total amount we paid for logs last year was a little over $180 million. So we understand what obligations we've got here. We understand how big our business is here. We understand how important we are as a customer for our landowners and our log suppliers. And it's a responsibility that we take very seriously. And just to just simplify this and to bring this all to an end, I think there's significant upside in the South beyond what we're seeing currently. I talked about our announcements, but we're not the only ones making announcements on new capacity. GP built a mill in Alabama. It's got 2 mills, I think, under construction here in Georgia, Warrenton and Albany. West Fraser, I think, has broken ground on the rebuild of the Dudley mill. I'm hearing stories about Jordan adding a new small log line at Barnesville. The timber supply, the hosting conditions, and the opportunities here are absolutely fabulous. And people are going to take advantage of that. And I'm excited about where we are. We've got a platform here. It's a very important piece of our overall business. We're going to continue to invest. We're going to continue to grow. We're always looking for opportunities to add to the size of our platform through additional M&A work. But we ultimately understand that if we're going to be successful, we're going to have a relationship with our log suppliers that works for both them and for us. We can't be successful without our log suppliers and our landowners and the relationship there. And I know full well that you guys can't achieve your objectives unless companies like ours are investing and growing our business. And to be able to do it in a way that helps Georgia and the U.S. South position itself as one of the key world suppliers of quality softwood lumber products is a really big part of the puzzle for us, and one that I'm really proud to be part of. So thank you for being here today. It's great to have a chance to come back and visit. It's great to have a chance to visit with Dale and some of the other folks that I've got to know over the last couple of years. I really appreciate the support that we've had as a company. I'm excited as hell about what the opportunities are here, and I look forward to coming back again. Hopefully not 5 years from now or 4 years from now, but I hope to get to come back here at the end of this capital investment phase and talk to you a bit more about how we're doing and where we see the new opportunities for our company. So thanks very much, folks. And Dale, I don't know if we're going to do questions or not, but up to you guys.